Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
And welcome back, everyone, to this lovely evening where you are joining us at the Holy Moment Podcast. This is a podcast where we watch films with you and we discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. And guys, you might notice that I have a nice chill, a calm to my voice. And that is because I am wearing a Snuggie. That's right, I am wearing the peak of science and technology, a blanket and a sweater meshed into one, and it is keeping my body ever so warm and ever so soft and cozy. And you might be asking, Nathaniel, why are you wearing a Snuggie? Well, first off, it's 11 p.m. and I am tired, so that's why. But more importantly, I like to play a little game with myself, and it's called, oh no, we're about to film the podcast in 2 minutes, and I want to wear something that like vaguely represents the movie, usually in colors. So I went into my closet and I was like, do I have anything related to dinosaurs? And my fiance was like, the Christmas present or the birthday present you gave me 2 years ago has dinosaurs on it. So here I am wearing my fiance's dinosaur Snuggie. If you're listening to us on audio, boo, go see a video so you can see this awesome gift I gave her. All that to be said, we are reviewing a creature feature this week, guys, and there's dinosaurs in it. So before I get too off on the rails and talk about the movie, let me introduce my dear co-host, Jeffrey. But before he introduces himself, since this is creature feature week, Jeffrey, while introducing yourself, tell us your most haunting dream you can remember as a child.
Ooh, my most haunting dream. Okay, so, yeah, I had this when I was young. I don't know what I had seen that made me conjure these images in my brain, but I remember ascending a staircase, right? It was a tall metal staircase. It wasn't like inside of a house. It was more like scaffolding. And at the very top, there was this monk. This fits with what we're watching because this monk had a katana.
Okay.
And there's this kid in front of him. He raises his katana, strikes the kid down, and the kid just tumbles down the staircase. And everything around the staircase is black void.
Ooh. Usually I feel like kids' dreams are really scary in their mind, like, oh my goodness, there was a giant gummy bear and it had syrup in its hands and it was going to drown me. But Jeffrey, that's actually like not just scary, it's very striking. Like I could see that in a movie, this void and this giant staircase and this monk striking down this sinful child. So you weren't the child, you were just watching it happen.
I was just watching it happen. And there were a few moments, like we watched the kid tumble down the staircase. It wasn't like he kills the kid falls, then we switch to the next scene. Ragdoll physics were in play here.
I appreciate that you talk about your dream as in scenes. Also, if we have any psychiatrists who are fans of the Holy Moment Podcast, please comment down below or email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. What's up with Jeffrey? Is he okay? What does his dream mean? Also, if we have any artists out there, send us a picture of your best depiction of this horrifying nightmare so we can like blow it up into a poster and put it in Jeffrey's room while he's sleeping.
I actually would love that. I would love to see an artistic interpretation of that dream, of that moment.
I'm seeing it in the same art style as Queen's album cover, where it's that giant robot holding the people and has blood on its finger. You know that one?
I don't know it at the top of my head. I'm gonna look it up.
Really? It's super famous. It's
What's
really
the
creepy.
Album?
I don't know the album. I think it's maybe one of their more popular ones. But if you just look up album cover art robot, that's like the kind of vibe I'm getting.
Yeah. No, I see that. Honestly, the face of the monk was similarly stoic and
Yeah.
emotionless.
Huh. That's beautiful. But guys, we are not here just to dive into Jeffrey's deep psychology and his unsettling dreams. But yes, we are discussing a creature feature today, and none other than Velocipastor. Now, I don't know if this episode is going to be for a lot of people, but for those of you who it's for and have seen this movie and love this movie, you're going to have a good time. And let me just say, if you haven't seen Velocipastor, which I'm sure 99.99% of people haven't, you should go watch it right now. It is literally only an hour and 10 minutes. It's like shorter than some TV episodes nowadays. It's super easy and it's a joyful time. But yeah, guys, last week we spun the wheel and it landed on creature feature. And originally I was thinking about doing The Thing, but then I remembered Velocipastor, dinosaurs, technically a creature feature, so I put it down. So let me give you a little backstory to this movie here. This was not just directed, not just written, but also edited by Brendan Steere. It came out in November 2017, and the budget was no wait. I wanted to ask Jeffrey a question before I said this, even though I might have just given him the answer. Jeffrey, how much do you think this was made for? Forget me maybe saying the first few suffix of the number.
I was, were you starting to say 13,000 or something?
Nope. Just what do you think it was made for?
I'm going to say 20,000. $20,000.
20,000. It was $36,000.
36. Okay.
So still in the same ballpark. Basically, what we're trying to say is it was made for no money, and you feel it in the best possible way. But yeah, this is like kind of a love note to like B-roll, or not B-roll. What is it called? B-level movies? Yeah, B movies. Like, they're a little more popular in like the 80s, 90s, where the idea was it was low budget. They kind of push into the idea of really low, special effects, gimmicky things. It wasn't supposed to look good. And that was part of the love for this whole genre. So I feel like this was kind of a love note to that genre of filmmaking. So that's why I say it's kind of a cult classic. People that know it love it, but it's not like, it didn't do a runtime in theaters. Like, I can't tell you the box office because like I don't think it actually made money. Like, it screened at some festivals and it's readily available like on every streaming platform, but it didn't have like a theatrical release, so it's not really widely known.
Well, something you said made me have this thought, but this movie actually reminds me a lot of An Oversimplification of Her Beauty, which we watched last week.
How? Oh, I'm so excited for you to make those connections because, guys, these are like the opposite movies.
Yeah. Well, they're both the works of auteurs, right? Okay, written, directed, and acted. Well, maybe not acted. Written, directed, edited by one mind, right? And this is his vision.
Well, let me just tell you, I would any day of the week hang out with Brendan Steere over Malik Nance.
Nance.
Terrence Nance. I would much rather hang out with the cool auteur director Brendan Steere because he's cool and funny and doesn't kind of have his head up his own butt like Tarek did. Just a little bit.
I'm sure that like Terrence is a very interesting individual to talk to, but I also feel like it might get a bit tiring. No offense.
It was, and doing research for this movie, I looked up the director because I wanted to know more about him because it was such like a fun movie. And I found like a little, like his website of like, hey, I'm a filmmaker. This is who I am. And he looks nothing like who you would think would make kind of a creature feature horror B-roll. He just looks like the most unassuming little fun dude. And I was really happy about that. Very sweet man. But yeah, guys, I'm super excited to jump into this movie. We need to shout out and thank our good Jeffrey and I have this good friend from college. Her name is Erin. And she begged me for she just kept kind of like bringing it up in the background of conversations. Oh, I watched this movie. It was so crazy and funny. You guys got to watch it. I was like, yeah, sure. And just like for months, just kind of always in the background of conversations. And I was like, okay, fine. So somehow it just got kind of put on. And I got taken for a roller coaster that I will never, ever forget. So a little bit of what is this movie about? Well, guys, it's called Velocipastor. And that's all you really need to know. Basically, Doug, the good boy, the best boy Doug, is a, Jeffrey, what are they called? Fathers? Because he's a Catholic, right? Because they do confession.
I mean, quote unquote Catholic. But
this is the perfect depiction of a Catholic. What are you talking about?
Oh, for sure. There's a scene where they're literally walking away from a Methodist church, and it has like the logo and everything, but that's sort of their space that they're working with.
Yeah. The shot of him giving communion to the girl. Dude, it's so good. It's so good. But what do they call? Like, what is he? Is he a father? Priest. Is he a dean? A priest?
Yeah.
Okay, so good priest Doug man. He's a priest in the Catholic Church. He's like 35, and he's following the Lord. He's a good man. He's a man of the cloth. One day his parents die in a horrible car accident, which we'll talk about later. And he's struggling with his faith. What a deep movie. Something we can all relate to. If you have a religion out there, who has not struggled with their faith at some point in time? Really
this
relatable.
Movie, it really reminds me a lot of the movie Sinners. Because Smokes also has a crisis of faith, right? And that plays an important part in his arc, right? And the same goes for Doug. So,
and they're both creature features. So
that's true.
They one for one. But yeah, so Doug has this crisis of faith, and his good priest kind of mentor tells him, sometimes we got to go on journeys when we have these crises. So you should go where you don't think God will follow. So Doug goes to China. And when he's in China, there's like a mysterious Asian woman and she's being chased down. Long story short, he accidentally gets cut by this mythical dinosaur tooth, and he gets the ability to turn into a dinosaur, and he gets into a bunch of shenanigans with a prostitute named Carol, and he fights ninjas, and he has crazy, awesome edited sex scenes, and he kills, pimps, and it's truly, if anything at the Holy Moment podcast is holy, it is this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
just a wild ride.
Let's just take a moment to really appreciate the best character in the film,
Frankie
Mermaid.
Frankie
thusly
Mermaid,
called
you better believe
because he's swimming in bitches, folks. Just
you
swimming.
guys, you know how last week I was praising an oversimplification of her beauty for quotes, and I was like, man, these quotes are so beautiful. It doesn't have anything on the quotes I wrote down for Velocipastor. And one of those is, there's this pimp. So one of the main characters, the love interest, is a prostitute, and she works for a pimp. And his name is Frankie Mermaid. And as Jeffrey just said, after he backhands Carol and is like, you know why they call me Frankie Mermaid, don't you? Jeffrey?
Because you're swimming in bitches.
Backhands her again. That's right. Don't forget it. Absolutely beautiful. Truly, it is art. But guys, I wanted to open up this conversation. Oh, no, Jeffrey has a question.
Yeah, no, it's actually a comment. It kind of reminds me of Baxter and your senior project.
Yeah. So my senior project was an Asian dark vigilante, and we had a friend Baxter, and I had him play a pimp. I love you to death, Baxter. If you're listening to this, I apologize for what I'm about to say, but he was supposed to show up to set as a pimp, and I guess our wardrobe, our costume designer just kind of told him, like, you know what a pimp looks like, just show up dressed as a pimp. And he took it to heart. He shows up in a white t-shirt cut off so deep that his nipples are just out for everyone to see, and then jeans. And I went, this isn't it. So I had one of our PAs run home to my house and get a maroon sports jacket and a fedora, and we put that on him. And then he looked like our true pimp. But little do people know that my pimp is based off of Frankie Mermaid. I should have named him in the credits, inspired by Frankie Mermaid, the one and only.
Oh, that would have been... You should have called him, like, Stevie Siren or something.
Because he's swimming in hose. But Jeffrey, I wanted to open up this conversation with something that I feel like we can all relate to. So just a little quick side note. Jeffrey and I are both religious on this podcast, so I thought this was very applicable, seeing as Doug was a man of the cloth. Do you believe Satan put dinosaur bones on the earth to trick us as humans and trip us up with evolution? This is important because Doug talks about it in the podcast or in the movie. Because again, dinosaurs. And he's like, even if dinosaurs weren't planted by Satan, I still wouldn't believe that I'm a dinosaur. So yeah. What do you feel about that as a Christian, Jeffrey, or as a Catholic?
I don't believe that.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure that dinosaurs roamed the earth. Yeah, I believe, I'm a believer in science, right? And I also believe that creatures evolved into their present states, but I just believe that God was over that process. So that's where I'm at with it.
Have you ever seen a dinosaur?
That's actually calling into question everything I know. I think that perhaps dinosaurs didn't exist.
Have you ever seen God?
Wow,
this just
my whole
folks.
world. Goodness, folks. Listen, this movie got me like at the edge of abandoning my faith because of just how convincing it was in its social commentary. But that statement right there just pushed me over.
Truly. I mean, I appreciate Doug. I watched this movie last night. I'm like, did he technically stay a priest by the end of the movie? Do you remember?
Well, he said he resigned from the church.
Yeah, you're right. He did. He did say that. He did. Because I know for a quick second, he was like, I can be a priest and a vigilante dinosaur eating man person thing. And I didn't know if that's where the movie ended.
But I mean, we have no clue as to what his specific religious or spiritual beliefs are. Maybe he's like, I'm going to continue serving God in my own way, apart from this organization that is making the world reliant on cocaine.
I forgot that was like the ninja's ulterior motive. We'll get into it in a minute, but yeah. So something I really did want to a more serious note. What is your history with like B-level movies? And do you enjoy them? Like, do you enjoy their kind of slapsticky self-awareness gimmickiness to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this movie was very self-aware, right? And that did it a lot of favors. Like, the satire was very well executed and incredibly funny, right? This movie won for me. As for my experience with other B films or films that were made on smaller budgets that had more gimmicks to them, I don't know. I don't have a ton of experience. We watched Super Babies. That was a bit of a slog.
Yeah, but that
There's,
one's not made to be a B movie. I mean, if it falls in
Yeah.
that category, it's by accident, which makes it a bad movie.
Yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space is widely considered one of the worst films ever made. And I haven't seen it, but I've always wanted to. But there's also like a movie that came out with Johnny Depp about the creator of that movie.
The Disaster Artist, right?
That's actually, it was a different one.
different
That's about the
movie?
making of The Room by
The
Tommy
Room.
Wiseau.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, right. Okay. We got to put The Room on the list one season. I haven't watched it either.
I haven't. I would love that.
Many movies we need to watch. Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Well, then I wanted to move into another question. You being an actor, Jeffrey, obviously I assume you aspire for lots of different roles. Would you enjoy and let's take into mind you're like a pretty famous actor where you can choose your roles, because like when you're an actor getting started, usually you'll take whatever you can get. But let's say you have the ability to choose your own roles. Would a role like this interest you, or are you just like there's not enough character in it and not enough like meat and bones as an actor to really get into it, so I wouldn't care too much about this role? Or would you enjoy it?
I think I would enjoy it. I think I would enjoy it for what it is. And I think when it comes to comedic roles, I've heard it said by many comedic actors that you're playing the role honestly, right? And you're taking every scenario seriously. Because if you're watching the actors in this legitimately ridiculous situation and they're winking and nudging at the audience the whole time, they're like aware that this situation is manufactured. That takes the audience out of it. It's even funnier, though, if the actors are fully invested and fully believe in the stakes of the moment. It's just more relatable.
And I fully believe that every single moment, Doug was 100% invested. So, folks at home, to paint you a picture of the absurdist humor that this movie is, it opens up with an amazing scene. Just like how we talked about Sinners 2 weeks ago, like really hooking your audience. Don't be limp. Don't be pussyfooting around your first scene. Like really get the audience in. So we open up with Doug giving a sermon at his church. And then he ends his sermon. He walks out and it's sunny and it's beautiful. And his parents are across the street and standing by their car. And they're waving to their son and the birds are chirping. And it's so nice. And then we're on Doug and a car explodes. And Doug falls down on the ground from the explosion. And then, that's already kind of gimmicky. Like we kind of seen it before. Oh, everything's like hunky-dory. It's almost like too nice. And then someone dies. The thing that makes this so hilarious is then we cut to the car, and instead of a car on fire or even bad CGI, there is no car, there are no parents, there is just subtitles that read car VFX effects, and that's it. And then we just cut back and forth between that and Doug, and every time we're on Doug, he is screaming and profusely crying more and more. So like Jeffrey, you're just saying, kind of like leaning into that role, like believing. Like, I don't care the fact that there's no car on fire. I am believing that my parents just died. And it was one of the funniest like moments I've ever seen. And it really sets up the movie and the humor that you're about to get into.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if he had played that scene like, oh no, that wouldn't have been as funny. That he was screaming as though this had actually happened, right? Even though, and that makes it all the funny because it's so unconvincing.
Yeah, I really was actually kind of vaguely everything about this movie, it's really hard to describe, and it's even harder to make it tangible. It's really hard to replicate something like Velocipastor. I would almost say, to me, Velocipastor feels like you caught lightning in a bottle. Because for me, I don't often like B level kind of movies. I often don't like the gimmickiness. I often don't always like the slapstick kind of funny. It feels too over the top. But like Velocipaster captured something truly beautiful, something truly holy. And I don't even mean that like only 50% sarcastically. Like the jokes just landed every single time. Like, but then the moments that kind of vaguely had to land narratively kind of actually landed narratively. Like there are some moments of acting that I genuinely were thought were like half decent. Specifically, my favorite part of the whole movie, the sex scene. There's a scene between Carol and Doug. They have a little bit of dialogue, and it was kind of beautiful, and I thought really well acted. Did you feel that this movie was acted well at all, or do you really feel like it was just over the top the whole time?
I I enjoyed all of the performances. I think that they did exactly what the movie called for, and I feel like it was perfect for like the context. Yeah, Doug and Carol. I kept on watching them interact with one another. I was thinking to myself, man, this movie actually reminds me a lot of Titanic.
Really?
Yeah, because just forbidden love.
Yeah. I There's an amazing scene where Doug, just kind of got the dinosaur powers. He doesn't really know what's going on. And this is where he meets Carol. It's the middle of the night. Carol's supposed to be because Frankie Mermaid sends her to the park in the middle of the night because he's like, that's where the money's at. Go to the park and be a pimp or be a hoe. And she's out there. No one's out there. It's also not a park. It's like the woods. She's not in a park. She's in the middle of like nowhere where you get murdered. So she's just kind of walking around there in a scantily clothed outfit. And then a murderer walks up with a gun and is like, give me all the money. And then Doug, who is struggling with now being a dinosaur, shows up and eats the dude. And then in classic kind of like werewolf fashion, he stops being a dinosaur but kind of passes out. So he wakes up the next morning naked, or maybe just in his underwear. No, I think he's naked, and a place he doesn't recognize. And then Carol comes into the room, and he's super awkward, like there's like a good beat where no one's saying anything. He's a priest. He doesn't know what's happened. He's in this random woman's house naked. And you know what this man decides to say? He says, wait, I put it down word for word. Oh yeah. He says, hello, my child. As in like what a priest would say. And it's just, what a crazy thing to say, to wake up in a random woman's house naked and to look at her and be like, well, good morning, my child. As if like you're a priest or she knows you're a priest. Crazy.
I mean, the thing about Doug is he's a sheltered child, right? He is an adult. He's in an adult's body, but for all intents and purposes, he is a child, right? And this movie is taking him from childhood to adulthood. It's really a coming of age movie. But also, I don't want to ignore the interaction that she had in the woods with that murderer, burglar, whatever he was, where he's like, give me your money or else I'll kill you. He's like, if you do anything to me, hey, Frankie Mermaid's gonna kill you. And then he's like, that makes the two of us, which like makes no sense whatsoever.
I'm happy you brought that up. He said that line, and I for minutes was like, the two. Wait, does he mean? Does it? And then even in this conversation, when you were leading up to that, Jeffrey, I thought you were going to explain it for me so I could finally understand. So it was just nonsense.
Yeah.
Oh, I really did think it was something that I was just not under. I was like, wait, what does he mean? That makes the two of us. Okay, I feel much better about it. It also carries on the trope for like, I think the two times it happens in the movie, but anytime they decapitate someone by like the dinosaur eating their head, they just show a mannequin's head getting thrown off screen. And I think that's super funny.
Especially at the end when he's, raising the mannequin head of the Chinese leader of this organization of covert priest ninjas, but...
Because they actually do a pretty good job with the guts, because like they start panning from the neck down, and the neck has like visceral bloody guts hanging out of like the severed neck, and it's pretty decently impressive. But then they slowly pan up to a really, really bad mannequin head with really bad cheesy Asian eyebrows and goatee like glued onto it. So that just
focus
made
on
it
it.
Funnier. Yeah. It's like, sometimes I hate it, but I loved in this movie all of the random zoom ins were so funny. I get why people now love The Office. Like, it's just so funny. Like it says a lot about camera movement actually in films and how cameras can be like I know a lot of cinematographers and directors talk about it, like how the camera is a character. The way the camera moves tells us a lot about the story. If the camera decides to stay static, that kind of tells us the headspace of the characters. If it decides to zoom in or do this. So it goes to show like just a simple zoom in is so freaking funny sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's just like pan up on the decapitated dude and then zoom in on his eyebrows. It got me every single time. Really, really big fan. But
Especially whenever they're zooming on a side character in order to explain their whole backstory.
yeah, that was really good. I thought to our audience at home, how many of you are familiar, Jeffrey? Are you familiar with the classic Leroy Jenkins bit?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
so
it wasn't a RuneScape thing, was it? No, it was
no, it was not Lord of the Rings, League of Legends.
League of Legends.
There was a bunch of people playing Leagues of Legends, and they were about to go on this really big boss raid. And like, there's a group of like 5 guys, and they were like talking about calculations and crazy percentages, and we got to do this much damage per second. And then one of the people in the group said, screw this, and just yells Leroy Jenkins and runs in and then like dies. But there is a similar scene where the ninjas are like about to attack the dinosaur, Doug, and one of the ninja guys starts being like, okay, we need to do this approach. We need to do it this time. We need to surround him. And then we start getting the monologue of one of the ninjas really randomly. And I thought he was just going to scream his name out and run in and get eaten. But unfortunately, that does not happen.
I mean, that's the thing about this movie is we get so many really complex characters that make us really feel for each individual, right? Father Stewart, easily the most complex character in cinema within the past, 3 decades.
I'd love to say I feel like you're lying, but you're not. Father Stew. Also, that's funny. That's one of the names of the movies that we watched, wasn't it? Father Stew?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, this Father Stew, way better than the real Father Stew. The real Father Stew is probably based off this Father Stew.
The real Father Stew is a real person.
Yeah. I'm he watched this movie and said, I'm going to be like that dude. Tell us, Jeffrey, embody Father Stew for a minute. Tell us the character of Father Stew for the audience.
Yeah. In this movie, he is sort of a father figure, no pun intended, to our main character and his mentor at the church, who is encouraging him to, hey, keep your vow of chastity, right? Don't believe in those devilish dinosaurs. But also there's a genuine care there. He's a good man. In fact, when he's comforting Doug over the death of his parents, this is a really funny scene. He's giving him advice. He's like, here, drink some more wine.
Yeah. I did like the joke about that.
Yeah. But then we find out that, he was in Vietnam. And he had a loved one. He had a sweetheart, right? And he had plans to have 11 children with this woman. He's going to name one of those children, like Ali, after his good war buddy. But then his war buddy gets shot. And then he finds his wife, or his sweetheart, in the woods of Vietnam. And she runs at him. She's happy, he's happy. She steps on a landmine. All of her guts just...
The amazing thing about that scene was like, there was no nod to a landmine. You didn't see her step on anything. You didn't see an explosion. They just did like a jump cut. So it's like this wide shot of Father Stew on the right side of the frame and the wife running up on the left side of the frame. And then they just cut it where she's like getting kind of close to him and then like freeze frame. And then they just like throw a ton of blood at Father Stew. So it looks like she was like evaporated with a laser beam. It does not look like a landmine at all.
That is what I think any filmmaker that is lacking in funds, that's what they should aspire to, right? And the quality of their special effects, because that was so effective, right? But it also feels like it could be done very cheaply, right? It's a very manageable effect.
Literally just, throwing blood at a dude. But you're missing the best part of the scene, because after the wife explodes and covers the husband, Father Stew, in blood, he's standing there motionless. 2 of his war buddies get on either side of his shoulders and they're like, oh, that's weird. What was that woman doing out in the woods? And the other guy goes, probably looking to start a family. They're just in the Vietnam woods, which also Vietnam woods and China woods look a lot like any American woods in someone's backyard. Just suspiciously.
Well, are you saying they didn't actually go to Vietnam? They didn't actually go to China?
I'm just saying with a budget of $36,000, I think they could get the crew to Vietnam and then they would be stranded there for the rest of their life.
All I'm saying, I believed it. I was
Well,
fully
Jeffrey,
immersed.
your suspension of disbelief was much better than mine. Or like the opening scene where Father Stu is talking to Doug and he's like, sometimes when we're having these moments of doubt, we got to go somewhere where we don't think God would follow us. Cut to Doug in the woods, title drop, China. Or not title drop, but like captions, it just says China.
Yeah.
So it's like God
Followed
won't follow you
by-
to China.
Followed by a few moments later, Doug staring off into the distance. China.
And then he goes, I think this is east. This must be east. Jeffrey and I were talking before the podcast started. Jeffrey and I both, how many times have you seen this movie?
This would be my second time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
This is probably my fourth or fifth time, actually. It's probably one of the movies that I've watched more as an adult than any other. But I think Jeffrey and I both were going into it maybe a little bit like, we've already seen this movie. And it's always fun when we can watch these movies together or with other people. I think movies were meant to, be enjoyed together, watched together. But both of us, unfortunately, had to watch it by ourselves. And I think we were both kind of going into it like, it's going to be a slapstick comedy. We don't want to watch this by ourselves late at night. But I feel like both of us actually were pleasantly surprised. How was watching this for the second time, Jeffrey, with no one compared to the first time with people?
Honestly, I really enjoyed both. And I think enough distance had passed that, honestly, watching it the second time, I came into it expecting this movie to be dumb and funny, but more dumb than funny, right? And I was worried that it would just be a slog to work through. But this movie kept my attention at every moment and kept me laughing at every moment. It didn't feel hindered by the fact that I was watching it by myself.
No, I fully agree. I 100%, I got done with a long day of working and I was like, my fiance's asleep. I don't want to watch this. I want to just go to bed. But I watched it and I ended up having a great time with it. And you know what? When you watch a comedy, I feel like on the second rewatch, a lot of the times it's not as fun as a movie because jokes are all about timing. And once you know that timing, they kind of lose their punch. And I was expecting that to kind of be true about Velocipastor. But dare I say, I think this was actually really intelligently written. Like the jokes are witty and smart. Like, a joke that's really stupid, but it's kind of funny. Like, have you ever seen Futurama? Like, all of the joke is really dumb, funny jokes, but it's not lowbrow. Like, they're all really kind of smart, well-placed jokes. And I would say I feel the same way about Velocipastor. And that's why the jokes don't, if you watch this every week, sure. But, once every 6 months, it doesn't get old, at least to me personally.
Yeah, and a part of the genius of it is how it very intentionally inserts really dumb moments. Like that exchange between Carol and the mugger in the woods, where she says something and his response makes absolutely no sense at all. You could see that moment being something that an amateur writer would mistakenly put in, but that was very intentionally placed there and made all the funnier because of the fact that it was like just so incredibly dumb.
And that's again why, guys, I say kind of feels like lightning in a bottle. Because I feel like the average person watches Velocipastor and they're like, oh, I could do that. Bad cinematography, bad acting, bad special effects. Who can't write that script? Just write down the most absurd thing that someone could say and film it. And I feel like even me, maybe even 3-4 years ago when I first watched this movie, that was my impression as well. But I just don't think that's true. I think, and again, I don't say this ironically, considering it's kind of a goofy movie. There is a certain level of balance you have to have with absurdist humor. If you lean into the absurdity too much, nothing is funny because at every moment something's going to happen and then you lose the surprise. If it's always over the top, it's never funny. So I felt like Velocipastor really walked that fine line. Again, it never was super deep. It never was crazy, like thought-provoking. Like it was always dumb and goofy. But they somehow, for me personally, walk the line of being dumb and goofy, but also just kind of actually interesting. And I think that's actually a really, really hard line to walk. So I really do props to the director. Again, wrote it, directed it, and edited it. And that's a big deal because the editing in this, chef's kiss. It was it was classic. Zoom in, opacity fade, like scroll someone's face across screen, half like opacity while you have some other scene going on in the background. Just really goofy, funny transitions, but they worked.
You can tell that this editor knows what they're doing, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It didn't feel amateurish, or as though someone came in not knowing how to edit and now they're experimenting with all the different transitions. It was very stylistic.
Yeah, I fully agree. And also I liked because it didn't just, and this might just me being ignorant because I haven't seen all the movies ever, but it didn't feel like also just a perfectly direct
Homage. Homage.
homage to other movies. Like again, I'm sure there's a lot of inspiration, creature feature kind of B-roll, B-level movie, but it still felt like its own thing. And in doing that, it made the director again feel even more capable. Like I'm not just doing like something that pays homage, like I'm just ripping off a bunch of things. He felt like he did his own deliberate take on B-level movies, and I thought it was very clear that he knew what he was doing, and he was in for a movie as being chaotic and as low budget as it was, it always felt intentional, to me at least.
Okay, so I know that we've been wanting to. We have this dream of making a feature film with all of our friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you be satisfied if this was the kind of movie that we had made with
Oh,
friends?
yes and no. I don't think I would be. This isn't the type of movie I would make as a first attempt at a feature film. But honestly, maybe it should be. Maybe this should be kind of the more, again, I'm not saying it's lowbrow, but it's also like you could only do so much money. You could only make so much for like 30, 40, 50, even $100,000. Like there is at some certain point, you're capped by your money. Obviously, I think you can do a lot. I'm not saying you need a crazy budget to make good movies. Ultimately, again, just rewind to last week, an oversimplification of her beauty. I bet that movie was made for very cheap. It really was more of a bio documentary. You can make good art for little money. But all I'm trying to say is, no, I think the approach I have is I don't actually love comedies and I don't love horror, especially usually B-level type horror and comedy. So I think I would avoid it. I think I would want something more dramatic and I don't know. I feel kind of dumb saying artsy, but something a little more suspenseful, like kind of some type of dark thriller. Now, I think Brendan should be very proud, and obviously this is what he was going for. He wasn't going for like some dark thriller, so long story short, and here is even a better example, or not a better example, but a different example. Our professor wrote and directed a feature film that all of us, our students, worked in, and we made a feature film, and it got made, and it got produced and distributed. It was really cool. But that would fall more into the camp of like nostalgic 80s horror, kind of fun nostalgia, Stranger Things, maybe a little B-level type movie making. And even that, I respect the director and writer a lot, but I wouldn't want to make that type of movie. Again, it has a little bit too much of an edge of humor that I personally wouldn't put into a movie that I wrote.
Yeah, that's fair. I think I'm in a similar boat in that I would prefer a more dramatic role, assuming I would be an actor in that film. But at the same time, I think that this would be a very fun movie to make, and it would be a relatively cheap movie to make, too. If this could be maybe the first of two features that we'd make as a friend group, I think I would be satisfied with that. Right?
Yeah.
This could be the thing that we show people, right? That gathers support for that second feature.
Yeah, no, I could see that. To be honest with you, Jeffrey, I was surprised that this movie took 35 grand to make. Um, I know firsthand how expensive movies get out of hand. Like my feature film, no, my senior thesis short film, which is only 15 minutes long, we spent $10,000 on it. So do not get me wrong. I know movies get out of hand and spend a lot of money, but I guess I just got the vibe of more like, oh, this was just some friends that came together. Everyone did it for free. They were just kind of shooting the shit, and nothing was really coordinated or done super professionally. But after reading up on the director, honestly, very similar story of ours. He went to film school. He had a senior thesis film, but it was a feature film that also got distributed and did pretty well. And then he made this film. So he clearly kind of knew what it took to make a film. So thankfully, he probably did things relatively correct in the sense of safety. They have actually quite a bit of stunts going on. And even though they're goofier stunts, they're still stunts nonetheless. So I wonder if a lot of money went to that. And again, once you go to film school and you have a higher respect for people's time and energy, like within making films, and you work with people that respect their own time, you start to spend more money. Whereas if you're just a couple of high school friends that are like, let's get a camera and make something, then yeah, you can make it for super cheap. And I'm not saying that's bad, but I guess I just was surprised when I saw that it was made for 35 grand. But then when I saw kind of the director's background, it made a lot more sense.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense to me too. I feel like maybe for the different locations, they did a lot of special like practical effects too, which I'm sure took a large part of their budget.
I am curious what what took the most because I mean you could probably film this movie in 8 days. Uh, yeah, 8 to 15 days. 15 days is probably more than you need. 8 days probably isn't quite enough of what you need. Um, and kind of the lower realm of like Hallmark or Lifetime or even some like lower concepts indie feature films, they've kind of found that the perfect number of film days is 15 because if you get shorter than 15, you start to sacrifice quality. Like you're going through too fast. You don't get enough takes, you don't get enough coverage. But if you go past 15 days, you start getting into like, okay, it's getting a little bit better. But also, guys, remember, we're making like an indie movie, a Lifetime movie. Like we're trying to make money on our return. We're not trying to like make the best movie in the world. So it really has come down to a scientific thing where like it usually is 15 days you spend on a film set if you're doing Lifetime, thriller, low budget indie type of
Interesting.
things.
I didn't know that.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
I mean that's at least what me and my fiance have discovered working like here in Atlanta on film sets, that they're almost always like 90ish pages, like under 110, that's for sure, and not shorter than 85, and almost always 15 days. And they always either have Welch's or fruit snack. No, what's the other one? Welch's or
Mott's?
Mott's. Yeah. Yeah, Jeffrey, let's see if we could still be co-hosts together. So, long story short, when you're on a film set, they have Crafty, which is the snacks they feed you so you don't die. And every film set will either have Welch's of fruit snacks or Mott's of fruit snacks. And it's like, if you ever end up on a film set, you can ask anyone and they'll be like, they'll have an opinion and they know what you're talking about. I know I've asked you before, but what's your answer?
All right, here's my thinking on the matter. Right, I think Welch's has a better texture, but I think that Mott's are more flavorful. I think I prefer Mott's overall.
Oh, it was almost a good answer. I think I agree with you. I do think Mott's has more flavor, but their texture is unbearable. Their texture gets mushed into my like the roof of my mouth. I
It's
hate
stuck
it.
in your teeth. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gummy, which I mean it's good. It's a gummy, but it just gets stuck in your teeth and it's nasty. Uh, for you at home, if I make this into a reel, comment down below. Are you on the Welch's team or are you on the Mott's team? Who are you supporting? Are you Team Nathaniel or Team Jeffrey?
Yeah.
This is important, guys.
If I'm acting, I have to be careful with Mott's because again, I don't want that stuff showing.
It's always whenever I'm on a film set, the actors always have toothbrushes and they're always brushing their teeth. They're always like, "Oh, I got a quick run to the bathroom so I can brush my teeth in between this take." But speaking of actors, we couldn't call ourselves the Holy Moment Podcast if we didn't talk about feminism and women in film. What did you think of Carol's character? Again, these aren't the deepest, craziest characters, but I really liked Carol. You know what I will say, as I ask you a question, then interrupt you to give my opinion. Sorry. Carol and Doug had genuine chemistry that has sometimes beats big blockbuster films. Like
Yeah.
I believed their chemistry. They were super cute. Like again, she was this intellectual woman, but also a woman of the night, and he is this naive man of the cloth, and they just had great chemistry.
What was she like a hooker doctor lawyer?
She was a hooker doctor lawyer, and she has a quote because she's talking about like, well, I have to be a hooker to pay for my lawyer and doctor degree, but there's not a lot of there's not a lot of need or want or desire for hooker doctor lawyers. And I wrote down, I bet there's so much desire for hooker doctor lawyers. What are you talking about? Like that has to be a whole category out there. People want you to dress up as a sexy doctor or lawyer, but guess what? You actually are one.
Yeah. No, I mean that's like you could be very convincing. And I'm gonna stop.
No. I'm here. We're here for you, Jeffrey. The audience is listening.
Audience,
This
you
is
can
a
fill in the
welcoming
blanks.
place.
You can, I'll let your imaginations run with that.
Very good. Please, any artists out there, draw us a picture of you filling in the blanks and email to us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. But I digress. But yeah. What did you think of Carol's kind of character? And did you enjoy her on screen?
Yeah, I did enjoy her on screen. And I agree with you that there was good chemistry between them, between Doug and, Doug reminded me of Schmidt from New Girl.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
I mean, very vaguely, I think it's more in just his look. But also, there's a certain naivete or like an ignorance or an innocence to him, which is ironic in the case of Schmidt because he's a ladies' man. But
Yeah. He reminded me kind of vaguely of a young Mark Wahlberg. Like
oh,
maybe Justin looks. Also reminds me of another actor that I cannot, like, watching the movie all of last night. I was trying to put my finger on it.
yeah,
I couldn't
that's so
figure it
funny
out.
that you should compare to Mark Wahlberg though, because he plays Father Stu in the movie Father
Oh,
Stu.
I thought you were going to say he played Father Stu in the movie last night, and I was about to lose my mind and be like, okay, I'm not good with actors, but I know that's a lie. I know that can't be true.
Yeah, Colin
Um,
Farrell with your prosthetics for the Penguin move aside, Mark Wahlberg takes center stage.
playing Father Stu in both Father Stu and the Velocipastor. But another question I had for you, Jeffrey, was, this being at the end of the day a comedy, what was your favorite bit in the entire movie? What just got you laughing?
Whew, man. Oh, at the end when we find out the identity of
Yeah.
the ninja grandmaster's like assistant, Sam, we find out, oh, he's he's Doug's brother, right? Even though his parents had explicitly said that Doug was an only child, he was there the whole time.
What I love about this movie is they always have really big dramatic reveals, like the really slapstick stuff, like "I am your brother," but it's the little pieces of dialogue that they say next. So we know there's this evil ninja group trying to thwart Doug's killing bad evil people as a dinosaur vigilante stick, but we don't know why. And so finally, Doug and Carol at the climax of the movie show up, which I thought the ninjas were in China. I guess not. Kind of confused. Doesn't really matter. But they show up at the compound to fight the evil ninjas. And like Jeffrey was saying, the assistant to the Grand Master reveals himself to be Doug's brother. And that's like the big crazy moment. But the little line that comes next is what gets me. He's like, "You're not the only one that chose to follow the Lord." And I, because I think we find out that the ninja clan is actually like a church. They're like, it's crazy. And so that line was so funny. He's like, "You're not the only one decided to be a man of the cloth." So it's little lines like that like emphasize the big slapstick joke. That really got me.
And I especially love that this is supposed to be a gut-wrenching reveal, right? That someone that Doug is supposed to care about, he is forced to fight. But Doug kills him gleefully and is smiling and just grinning and relishing in the moment as he's stabbing his brother.
He kills him with the Force as well. Again, mystical dinosaur powers. He can turn into a dinosaur and eat your face. But the brother is like, "I have this sword passed down from generations. I'm not going to use it on you. You're not worthy of it." They do some hand-to-hand combat. Doug and the brother get pushed back, and they're staring down at each other. And Doug just holds up his hand and summons the sword to him. And he looks his brother in the eyes and says, "Your ancestors are my ancestors." And the sword just like flies towards him like he's a Jedi. And it makes no sense. But again, that line is hilarious.
Of course, and I love especially that he's like, I'm gonna throw this sword to the side because I'm gonna fight you honorably, right? My honor demands that I fight you hand to hand. Meanwhile, Doug's like, "Listen, dude, I'll use all the tools in my arsenal."
You know what? You know what I just made a connection in my mind?
What?
Doug's transformation is the same transformation we see in the love character in Grease.
Oh yeah.
Because isn't it in Grease? I don't remember her name, but she's like a pretty goody two shoes, like a good girl, wears good, appropriate clothes. And at the end of the movie, to get with not Tarantino, Travolta, John Travolta, she like puts on BDSM leather.
This is crazy that I'm saying this, comparing Grease to Velocipastor in this way. But like the main difference there is that change does not make any sense in Grease.
But it makes sense in Velocipastor because these are good written characters, guys.
There's an
I'm
arc,
telling you,
right, that makes sense, and we see him moving in this direction. Whereas with Grease, she's not the kind of person that would want what she becomes in the end, and we don't see that develop either. It seems very much that she's changing herself for this guy, right?
Shallow, lame, boring movie Grease, deep, theological, heart gut-wrenching movie Velocipastor. Truly. And the character arc I was talking about, like, Doug goes from wearing black because he wears his priest robes, and he's very stiff and very like virgin, stick up his butt. And by the end of his movie, it's very similar like Grease. They end up like making out in a car. And the end of this movie, we have Carol and Doug standing over like a cliff next to a Camaro, and he's wearing a biker jacket, like a black leather biker jacket, and then he makes out with Carol, and then it ends. And so yeah, that character arc, beautiful.
Also, speaking of making out with Carol, I'd love to see.
Whoa, be careful! That's my stepdad's name.
Oh. Man, I forgot. That's crazy.
I know. Every time in the movie they keep saying Carol, I'm like, my stepfather?
Well, speaking of making out with not your stepfather.
Oh, good. Thanks for the clarification.
You're welcome. I love the scene where they've just made out, like after the amazing sex scene, right?
Oh, it's so good.
They're ambushed by a ton of ninjas, right? And they both dispatch them very easily, in spite of, like, Carol has no experience with combat, right? That hasn't been established, or maybe I just missed it.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, and so they just very easily dispatch the ninjas, and they just start making out again.
And also, Doug is a man of the cloth. He has no fighting experience. The reason he can fight bad guys is because he turns into a dinosaur, which is indestructible. But he's fighting them as a human. So again, he shouldn't be able to fight them.
Yeah.
Also, what I love about the ninjas, because again, we set up that we're in, my mind is trying really hard to go through the gymnastic brain obstacles for the suspension of disbelief. So when he shows at the beginning of the movie, he's in China, and then, I'm sorry if I'm racist, but we see Asians and ninjas, I just assume we're in China. Those ninjas had Australian accents, they had British accents, they were like African American, they were anything but Asian. They got 2 Asians in the movies, and that's it. Everyone else that were dressed up as ninjas, like the classic, like think of a stereotypical ninja, and that's what they were. So you couldn't tell they weren't Asian until they started talking and had like Australian accents.
Not to mention that ninjas are Japanese.
I said Asians. No, they're all this samurai, they're all the same. They're all Asian. I can say that. For all you guys that don't know this, I am in fact Asian, so I cannot be racist.
But you've got a very diverse cast of ninjas. The most diverse in the least diverse way.
Well, you got to remember, this wasn't an Asian, Japanese training house. This was a church, and whatever you want to say about the church's methods, they were open to everyone.
And it's true. That's true.
Yeah. Speaking of, we got to talk about one of the most confounded, silly plans in all of film. So basically this I don't want to say evil, because he was a man of the cloth as well. The Asian that was in charge of the Ninja Academy, we think is a bad guy because he's angry that Doug is turning into a T-Rex and killing all of the drug dealers and pimps and people. But we find out that he has created a drug 4 times more addicted than cocaine, super cocaine. And he's going to flood the streets with it. He's going to get everyone addicted. And then he's going to take it away. And everyone is going to be addicted and going through relapse. And they're having a horrible time. And where do you go when you're going through relapse? The church, support groups. And so he's like, then we'll take them in. We'll take in the people going through relapse. We'll convert them to Christianity. And then we'll turn them into ninjas. And then once we have our Christian ninja army, we'll take over the world for Jesus. And I just thought, man, we're doing it wrong as Christians. That's truly what we should be doing, Jeffrey.
I mean, that's literally what the British did with the Chinese. They just flooded China with opioids and made them dependent on British trade.
See, Brendan, the director, again, he knows his history. Deep writing. It's very good. It's just a movie that goes down like a warm glass of milk at night. It's just so fun. And also, I'm not the type of person that is all about just throwing a movie on in the background or rewatching a movie or having a comfort movie. I usually watch movies once and never return to them. But I can really see this is one of those movies that just is so endearing, so much heart, so warm, so fun that you could just put it on and feel better no matter what type of day you had. I cannot wait to be a father and show my child Velocipastor. I don't know if that's what a good father should do, but it's what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely the move. I think it's going to teach them a lot of really positive values about, hey, don't accept everything that you receive uncritically. Don't get caught up in crack and cocaine. An anti-drug message. I think that's the main takeaway from this movie.
It truly is. Yeah. It's an anti-drug message. It's to love those who've sinned. Even Jesus loved the prostitutes. So did Doug. He loved the prostitute.
He really loved that
Dude.
prostitute.
Oh. My mind flashed to it, so I feel so bad for how they did Father Stu dirty because we have this scene where Father Stu is like, we need to exorcise this demon from you, Doug. But then he's like, the church is too slow, so we're gonna go to like an evil witchcraft dude. And during the seance to try and exorcise the dinosaur demon. Coincidence? I think not. But Doug starts to turn. He can't control the monster, so he plucks Father Stu's eyeball out. And so Father Stu falls unconscious. And I can't remember how, but then Father Stu wakes up at the camp of the Asian dude, the bad guy, who then proceeds to tell Father Stu his evil plan with the drugs, or his good plan, question mark, and then proceeds to stab Father Stu. So I just felt so bad that the last time Doug saw Father Stu, he was ripping his eyeball out, and then Father Stu got kind of killed off screen. They did the best written character in cinema kind of dirty.
Yeah, there wasn't a moment of closure there where Doug could say goodbye.
I
It's
mean,
really tragic.
I kind of got the feeling after Doug had sex, he was kind of like, this is what I'm about now. Father Stu who?
Nah, but like Father Stu is such a good friend and a reliable mentor, right? There was conflict there, but it wasn't
The dude
enough
killed
to
his own
tear them
brother. You think
apart.
he cares about Father Stu?
I think he cares about Father Stu. He should. He should. But he didn't care about his brother. So, I mean,
I'm just saying, man had sex once, started to ride motorcycles and put on leather. Suspicious, I think. It's funny, he was never shown riding a motorcycle. I kind of just like auto-corrected to, he's definitely riding a motorcycle somewhere.
oh, for sure. I didn't even
It-
question you.
It's also good news. There's like a whole Kickstarter campaign raising money for the sequel.
Oh.
Don't know if that's going to happen. I think the Kickstarter ended like 2 years ago. But if you go to Letterboxd, you can look up Velocipastor 2, and there's like it's there. I mean, it hasn't been made, but the page is there.
Is
So I think
Brendan still involved?
he's not listed as the director. One of the producers is directing this one. So again, I don't know what that looks like, but we'll
I
see if it
don't
ever
know.
happens.
I don't know. Again, lightning in a bottle. I don't know if.
I fully agree with you. I don't want. I mean, I'm tempted, and I kind of do want a second Velocipastor, but at the same time, I don't.
Yeah. Whenever it comes out, if it comes out, we'll screen it together.
Oh yeah, beautiful. What the folks have been waiting for. But I really could talk about Velocipastor forever because it just was such a fun movie. And there's so many good quotes. One of my favorite quotes, and I quote actually often with my fiance, is Carol suggests like, hey, you could do some real good in this world. The priests, the church, they just talk about good. They don't ever take action. I've been kind of being used and abused by a pimp. There are bad people in this world, and you have been gifted an ability to stop these bad people. And so they're kind of trying to come up with like, how is this going to work? How are we going to team up to get rid of the bad people while I can still be a priest? And she's like, I don't know a lot about God. And he replies with, I don't know a lot about dinosaurs. And I just thought, perfect duo, best couple in all of fiction ever. I love them so much.
For sure. That was such a dynamite moment. It's also really funny having watched this not long after I saw the movie Dead Man Walking, which, interestingly enough, it's about a nun who is ministering to a man on death row who is genuinely terrible and has done genuinely terrible things, who has killed 2 teens and raped one of them. And so that exactly the kind of person that Velocipastor would kill, except this story is a story of her finding his humanity and basically seeking the redemption of his soul. And so it's just an interesting contrast there of 2 religious figures. Of course, this is just dumb fun, whereas that is saying something deeper.
I mean, some people can be redeemed, but I don't know if Frankie Mermaid could ever have been redeemed.
Oh, for sure. I mean, he could never want it.
What a hard line. He could never want it.
Yeah.
Freaky Mermaid will ever be emblazoned in my heart because unfortunately Doug does get his revenge and does kill him.
Yeah. I highly recommend watching Dead Man Walking. I feel like it speaks, a major theme is just the radicality of love, the kind of love that I think we're expected to have for others as Christians, right? Loving our enemies and whatnot. But of course, Velocipastor, as far as entertainment value goes, is like soars.
Is it an older movie?
It came out in, I think, 1999 or 1998.
My year of birth. Oh, I'll go to watch. Okay.
It's on Amazon Prime right now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one of my last questions for you is not that they really tease it up, but they kind of tease up like, oh, what does his full form look like? Also, if you look at the Velocipastor poster, it's actually a really good poster, a really slick kind of like digital art poster of a Velociraptor. So you think like, oh, we're gonna get some like kind of crappy B level CGI of a Velociraptor. So the few times Doug transforms into his dinosaur, you never see the full form. You see gnashing teeth, bloodshot eyes, talons, but you never see the full thing. Granted, you kind of see it, so it's kind of cheesy, but you don't see the full thing. So when they finally reveal his full form in the wide shot, when they're fighting everyone at the compound, you're thinking, are we going to get like kind of that animated CGI Velociraptor? No, you just get a dude in a really bad T-Rex looking costume. Did you like the T-Rex costume?
I loved it. In fact, I loved how much of this movie was done practically, right? I feel like having a really out of place and cheap looking CGI monster on screen, that would have been the easy joke to make. I love it. I love all the choices that they made.
I fully agree. I feel like going with like a crappy kind of CGI dinosaur would have made sense, but it wouldn't have been the right pick. Him being in a really silly, dumb dinosaur costume where you can see his feet, and anytime the dinosaur opens up its mouth to eat something, you kind of see his hand coming out and grabbing it. It just made everything meld together perfectly as far as like the comedy.
Yeah, like earlier on, we were talking about it, how it's VFX, car on fire. That's so much more funny than a cheap CGI image of a car on fire.
Yeah.
Even though that would have been the obvious joke.
Exactly. I feel like Brendan really did find ways to subvert the normal trope B-level comedy that we've already come to expect in films. Like there is a certain amount of ha 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 humor to really, really crappy CGI fires. Or like I've even seen the extreme where they don't even green screen the background out. They just crop it down. So you see a green screen background with a fire and then they put that on top of something. And that's funny. But even like taking it to the next degree and just saying it in text, I feel like he really found these ways to elevate and subvert the tropes that we've established in this genre, which I thought just good filmmaking, did a really good job. But again, maybe I'm tooting and blowing this movie too hard, but it is a cult classic. People love this movie. And again, I think the reason it fires on all cylinders is not because it's a ha 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 crazy absurd movie. There are so many absurdist movies out there that are honestly it's the type of garbage everyone thinks of when they think of absurdist B-level crappy movies. The movies that no one really wants to watch, and when you watch it, you like when you get done with it, you all had a good time because you were making fun of it. Velocipastor isn't that movie. It's this lightning in the bottle. It's subverting the expectations and knowing just how far to push the envelope of absurdism until needing to pull it back a little bit. And for that, I actually think it genuinely is a good movie. And anyone who likes funny movies or just wants to be happier in their life should go watch it. Literally an hour, 10 minutes of your time. It's amazing. With that being said, I think that brings us to the most holy of moments, where we talk about our holy moments. Jeffrey, I realized we haven't done this in a long time. So can you just give us a really quick synopsis of why this section's called The Holy Moment, why our podcast is called The Holy Moment Podcast, just real quick?
This podcast is called The Holy Moment Podcast. And in spite of the name, we're not actually an explicitly or exclusively religious podcast. We are a movie podcast. The name comes from an idea in film theory that comes from Andre Bazin, who was a very famous film theorist who felt that film as a medium was uniquely capable of capturing profundity in mundanity, right? The beautiful and the wonderful in the mundane. And we just thought that was a really beautiful idea, and we wanted to bring it into this show. And so at the end of each episode, we talk about the holy moment, or the moment that really stands out as reflecting the true, the good, the beautiful, and we share that with y'all.
Wow, that was genuinely really well put, and that's perfect for me to pull out as a reel. And Jeffrey, I was going to be mean as the host because I was afraid you might take my holy moment. So I was going to be mean and as the host say, I'm going to go first. But you did such a good job explaining that. I want to reward you and say, you tell me your holy moment of Velocipastor first.
Man, I just think that the characters are so complex and incredibly like subtle, right, and nuanced in how they present themselves. Like Stu, right? Stu is your stereotypical priest who's a stickler for the rules, but then we come to find out that he was a family man or an aspiring family man whose hopes were dashed, and now he has no choice but to turn away from that life that he wanted because that life is no longer possible. And so I would say my holy moment, that goes to Father Stu.
Is your holy moment actually my holy moment?
But
Was that actually? No. Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were like making a joke and being like, I know what Nathaniel's holy moment is, so I'm not going to say it, so I'm just going to pull something out of my butt. Or is that actually your holy moment?
No. I think that my real holy moment is just how smart the script was, right?
Yeah.
I think it takes a very smart man to write a script that seems so dumb on the surface. It's smart enough to look dumb and be funny. That's so hard.
I fully agree with you there. Sorry, I wasn't trying to call you out and be like, that's a bad holy moment. I thought you were just saying it satirically as if it wasn't actually your holy moment. So I was afraid you knew my holy moment and didn't want to say it. So you're like, I'll just say a random thing.
No.
Oh, okay. But I mean, I kind of do agree with your first holy moment. There is a certain level of truth of like, that was part of the comedy of like, I'm going to take these like one note characters and give them some really weird dimension, but also it's really funny dimension. Yeah. But guys, for me, my holy moment, I've already kind of said it. I'm so excited to talk about this. If you don't like go watch the movie, whatever, but look up Velocipastor sex scene on YouTube. I promise you won't get anything too crazy explicit. I think I've said it on the podcast. I don't like explicit sex in my movies. I think sex and romance has a place in movies. I do. I'm not being like, I don't want any type of sex in my movies. No, I'm not saying that. But I do think often they make it too explicit and gratuitous for not really any character development reason. And it feels like just something you have to check off. Or if like an artist is like, this is art, it just doesn't feel like it's really compelling to the story. But in Velocipastor, this is art. And I say this not as a joke and not as satire. I really do believe it's my favorite sex scene of all time. And it's because it's how it's edited. So it's the scene after Doug tries to go through the seance to expel the devil inside of him. And he takes out Father Stu's eye and he's freaking out. So he goes back to the place he feels most comfortable. He goes back to Carol's house and he's hiding in Carol's room. And then Carol comes back and she's like, what happened? And he's like, oh, they tried to exorcise the demon. And I think I hurt people. He's freaking out. And not only is the sex scene amazingly edited, but actually it has my favorite line in the entire movie. And it's not a funny line because the movie's so funny. It's so over the top. There's no real genuine deep acting moments, but the music tones down. Doug is actually freaking out. He's like, I was put on this earth to be a good person. I desperately want to be a good person and I'm hurting people. And she's like, no, you're not a bad person. He's like, how do you know that? She puts her hand on his chest and she's like, because I know what's in here. And then there's a long beat. And she's like, there are no monsters in here. And first off, that line, like they didn't play it for kicks and giggles. Again, it's what made this movie good. They once in a while actually played serious moments for serious moments. And genuinely it worked for me. Like it actually was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. But then what happens afterwards is she's like, kiss me. And so they start making out. And then, they don't show anything too graphic. But they edit this scene in just this acid trip, amazing way, opacity, like they'll have like them making out and then they'll like opacity it down to 50%. And then they'll do just like a bunch of crazy like editing in the background of them making out. They'll do things where it's like, they'll have them kissing and then it'll be shrunk down to 1/8 of the screen. And then the rest of the screen is filled in with other shots of the movie. And then like they're editing to this amazing, amazing song, guys. Okay. If you don't even want to go watch the scene, go look up the song Didn't Have Time to Think by Math the Band. They play the whole like 3.5-minute song during the scene and they're editing to it. And guys, it's just like the most fun you would ever have. Again, I don't like gratuitous sex or nudity. This doesn't have it. It's nothing too crazy unless you're like a prudish grandma. You should be able to handle it. just the most fun I've ever seen an editor have in a scene before that worked. Again, if you were to edit the scene in like a blockbuster movie, it wouldn't work. It's too crazy, it's too over the top. But for this movie that's already grounded itself in absurdity, it absolutely worked and it was beautiful. So please, just for me, go watch that scene. It by far is the holy moment. It has inspired scenes I've edited since then. It's one of my favorite songs of all time. And it's led up to by this actually genuinely good acting moment between Carol and Doug. And it's actually one of my favorite scenes in all of film ever. And I'm not even joking. It's that good. Oh, I really put it on the podcast episode. I put it on the spinny wheel just so I could talk about this moment, guys. It's so good. Like there's this shot of them reaching their hands out like the Adam and like the God and Adam creation, and they're slowly coming closer and closer, and the opacity faded into the background, and they show just a bunch of other random shots. It's so funny. It's so funny.
I can attest to the fact that he's been wanting to talk about this for such a long time.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Jeffrey, because it just unironically best edited and just best sex scene, period. Okay.
I was impressed by it. I recalled that you had this reaction, right? And I was expecting it to be sort of a cool montage, but the fact that they took elements from it was a montage not only of the sex scene, but a celebration of all of the moments that led to this one moment. And it was really well done.
It worked. Again, it's just lightning in a bottle. Somehow it shouldn't have, but it just fired on all cylinders. Again, like what a sex scene montage, and they like have all the scenes that led up to the scene. Like what an hour and 10-minute movie that's a comedy. How much emotional momentum can you actually build up into this 45-minute moment of the movie? But they actually build up a lot. And not only is it really funny, but also the sex scene is like weirdly endearing. And I know I keep referring to it as a sex scene. It's really not. It's more like a musical video. It's so good. They did a great job, the actor or the director and the actors.
Yeah, it's a beautiful ode to the journey, right? It was less about that moment and more about the moments that led to it.
Yeah, really good. But yeah, that's my holy moment. And the only thing left to do is rank this movie. I'm really curious. This being one of the very few kind of B-level absurdist, not taking itself seriously, kind of like we haven't done Mighty Python, but like kind of in like that realm vaguely. So I'm curious what you're going to give it compared to like some of the other classics that we've watched.
I had so much fun with it. I really have no complaints or things that I would nitpick. I'll give it a 4. I'll give it 4 stars.
On a rewatch, and when I was thinking about my ranking, I was like, if I end up giving it a 4, it will ultimately just be a bias thing. It will just be like, I just thought this was so funny when I watched it in college with my friends at 1 a.m. and it just will live in my heart forever. And that's true. But also, rewatching this, I actually think it deserves a 4 for the genre that it is in. Again, the ability of what the director pulled off with this balancing act of absurdist humor, writing really intelligently, really witty, great editing. I actually again like not like just because something's a 4, I'd put like Django Unchained as a 4, and like the production quality and acting is just not even close. But he did his almost absolute best to perfection in the category he was in. And so for that, not just because it's good humors and good memories, actually for what the movie is standing alone, I really think it's a 4. So yeah, I think Velocipastor is a 4 out of 5. Absolutely stellar movie. Whew. Well, we did it. We talked about. I feel like there are certain movies as we do this podcast. Like for me, it's Ponyo, Your Name, The Matrix, V for Vendetta. There's going to be certain really big movies to like check off as we go, and I feel like this is one of the big first ones for me. I think this is kind of one of the first like this is a movie I already had seen and I really wanted to talk about. That and RRR. So I guess 2.
Yeah, no, I mean, what are those movies for me? I think Paper Moon might be one of them. The Apartment for sure.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
That's my all-time favorite movie.
Sound of Music. Don't you really like Sound of Music?
I
Was that
do
someone
really
else?
like Sound of Music, but I think The Apartment is my favorite movie, and I don't even know where I would place The Sound of Music. I haven't made a top 10 like list. Castle in the Sky is definitely one for me.
Oh, Castle in the Sky is phenomenal. Man,
My
some Ghibli
all-time
films are hit or
favorite Ghibli
miss,
movie.
but that one's good. It's your favorite Ghibli?
My favorite Ghibli by far. It was my first Ghibli, so perhaps I'm a bit biased, but I think it's of the Ghibli films that I've seen. It's the most classically structured narrative, but also the world I'm just enamored with.
Yeah. I get what you mean. My first Ghibli film is also my favorite Ghibli film, and I don't know if it's because it's the best or because it's just I'm also biased. But I was tempted for because this season we have a category called foreign film, and I was tempted to do a Ghibli film, but I was like, you know what? Like everyone knows about Ghibli films. I love them. We're going to review all of them one day in the podcast. But I was like, we've already it's already obvious that Jeffrey and I love anime. We grew up on anime. We love Japanese animation. I was going to do blue. Oh, what is it? Paprika. I was going to do Paprika because it actually has a lot of inspiration for Inception, one of my favorite movies. But then I was like, you know what? We should do some love for like non-Asian, specifically Japanese foreign films. So I did not pick that. But I digress.
We maybe could have like for our next season a category of Japanese cinema.
Yeah, I'd love that. But if you guys at home are interested in like what are Nathaniel and Jeffrey's top 10 favorite movies, email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com and we'll tell you. We'll sit down and I think I have my top 10 around here somewhere. I could probably rattle them off, but you have to let us know if you're actually interested in knowing what they are. But I think that's everything, Jeffrey. I think I've covered everything I wanted to. So I think it's time for you to spin the wheel.
Spin that wheel. All right. So if y'all aren't familiar, folks, we have wheels that we spin at the end of each episode. I have my own wheel, and Nathaniel has his own wheel. And the wheel has our choices, film choices for this season, for our respective categories, right? And so for me, the options that we have before us are Paper Moon, Life is Beautiful, Lincoln, and Total Recall. So, drum roll, please.
If you could pick any, what are you hoping for?
Okay, I think that I haven't seen Paper Moon in a long time. Oh, but Life is Beautiful. That's one that I haven't seen since I was a kid, but that movie was really powerful, and I'd love to see it again. I'm going to say either Paper Moon or Life is Beautiful.
Okay, here we go. What are we watching?
All right, so the movie that we are watching is Life is Beautiful.
Hey, yay! That sounds like a fun, nice, chill movie.
It's so, I was really happy as the arrow started slowing down because it was literally between Paper Moon and Life is Beautiful. So, depending on where it landed, it would still be a movie that I wanted. So.
This proves Jesus is real. Jeffrey doesn't have to convert. Well, good. Well, so guys, next week we're watching Life is Beautiful. Tune in. But on that note, just a little update about this, guys. It's going to be quite a while. I think it's like 5, maybe 6 weeks. But I am heading home to Iowa. Yes, I'm from the great state of Iowa for a little more than a month. I run every year a fireworks stand. So it's just been something I've been doing since college. I love it. It's a lot of fun. So I just set up a tent and I just bake in the 100-degree weather and sell fireworks to rednecks. And I make money and it's a good time. But my computer that I use to do this podcast is a desktop, and I don't really have a way to bring it with me very easily to Iowa. So the podcasts are still going to come out weekly, still going to come out on Wednesday, the same as normal. But unfortunately, I won't be able to edit the video. So we're just going to be releasing an audio podcast for the next 5 to 6 weeks. But don't worry. I spent the last month slowly making reels out of old episodes. So don't worry, Wednesday, Friday, Monday, our same schedule, we're going to release reels, but they're not going to be reels about the movie we're talking about. So next week, when we watch Jeffrey's movie, we're not going to release reels about that movie. We're going to release old episodes. But guys, that means you just get to hear what we say in old episodes. We're going to be doing movies like Akira, The Muppets. We have some Reservoir Dogs. We have, what else? What other ones did I do? Fallen Angels, which is our least watched episode, but it's one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done. And it's also some of my favorite reels we've ever made. So I'm really happy to release those reels. So be on the watch out for those. So again, really sorry for the next few weeks that you're not going to have the video podcast to watch, but you can still listen to us. And there's some other exciting news when I'm going to Iowa, but I'm not going to share that right now. We'll share that as it gets closer. But guys, I think that's everything. I say it at the end of every podcast, or Jeffrey does. We got social media. Go like and subscribe. If you like us, if you like God, if you like America, and if you like sugar, you should go, or just one of those things. You don't even have to like any of them. Just something. Go watch us on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Follow us. And if you have any thoughts or heels you want to die on, if we said something that you're like, that's dumb, that's bad, or we forgot about your favorite scene or act in the movie, email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. I promise you, if you do, Jeffrey will pass out of glee and sell you his underwear. And that is a Nathaniel Lirio promise. So with that information, I hope all of you have a lovely week. And remember, if you ever find yourself in China, do not pick up a tooth shaped like a dinosaur. Otherwise, you will have sex with a prostitute. Until next week, see you guys.